So, thinking about something here. If we take a look at the Federal Reserve is raising rates. And then on the other side of the game board, we have Russia, who people like to call the big gas station out there be kind of between it's Europe and Asia. They're just a big gas station, just a regional power, not a superpower. Let's think to Well, if we got Europe kind of monkey in the middle here, so you got an energy crunch on one side and you got a monetary crunch on the other side coming in. So Europe was taking US dollars from the Federal Reserve, incorporating them into whatever it is that they're doing to fund all their scheming little programs to, let's say, create the unipolar world and put some technocrats stroking cats into big chairs and going to rule the world. Okay, well, so you got money from one side, energy from the other side. Europe is almost in a way kind of spiting both of those. So Jerome Powell did say that there is room for more than one reserve currency. Okay, so that could leave China open to create a reserve currency. Heck, from the Zoltan Pozar article, an analyst from Credit Suisse brought forward is that, well, US kind of offshores their wage inflation by getting Chinese to build the simple tchotchkes and then ship them back so that US industry doesn't need to pay the higher wage rates in order to get those things. Then on the other side, you have Russia providing very cheap energy to which the Europe, specifically Germany, needs to use in order to industrialize. And I think in one of Zoltan's articles, he said, well, $20 billion worth of energy converts into $2 trillion per annum worth of goods in the German economy. That's a massive leverage uh, amount when you think about it. If we're going to turn the energy taps off. All right. So, what if through all of this, and yes, you could say, well, there's sanctions in place, so there's no way a New York bank could be playing over on the Russian side, even if it's quite under the table. No, it's just speculation on my part, maybe opinion. If I'm just looking at it from a game board perspective and wondering, you got Russia with tons of energy, you got the USA with a lot of money. That if the US were to support, or I'm going to say some banks were to support the kind of rebuild or to put funding into Russian enterprises, especially as they're potentially redesigning the way that their supply chains and value chains work as the global supply chain has been disrupted. But what's to stop the creation of a new regional reserve currency, like an RRC? Like China can create an RRC, US turns into an RRC, Russia ruble turns into an RRC. Europe is effectively gone off the game board from a financial standpoint, UK as well, because we're seeing a lot of problems there at the time of this recording. So the thought here is, all right, so if I had the money and I help fund some of these industries, or even at some point when things open up a bit, provide some management support to boot up some of these industries for a stake in this new currency. And then here's potentially what could happen is, first of all, if we get it seemingly, if you look at China and you look at Russia, Russia has Vladimir Putin, who's been in the presidency for quite a long period of time, and now you got Xi in China. It looks like he's now the commander to the level that Mao has been. He's got a third term election, so I have to take a look at, is this just a 5 year term, or is there something, or does he have pretty much a more solid tenure? Because then this allows him to do some more, like his political capital that he has to spend has just been granted quite a few stacks. So whatever political capital is in the game board, Xi in China has a lot to spend now. So he can do some things with the regional currency. Putin seems to always have, he's reformed the economy within his country. They hardly have any debt compared to the collective West. So he's got some additional moves now in political capital built up on the game board, and showed that through the war in Ukraine that he's playing a pretty strong hand. And we don't even see anyone in the collective West saying, okay, well, let's do peace, let's figure things out, let's try to stabilize the game board. We don't see any of that. So to create potentially some insurance against political vandals coming into play, how about if the Federal Reserve supports another reserve currency on the game board, insofar as potentially providing some insulation? Like if they're going to build this currency on the other side of the game board, then perhaps they can help leverage that when a time comes where there is a not so friendly political environment that, like currently right now, looks like they want to vandalize the USA, and down goes the USA. Well, then the US banking system goes down, and people like Jerome Powell, who look to be a nationalist, who care about the United States of America. Yeah, a central banker is now a friend of ours. Usually it's, us little people trying to make headway what we couldn't against all this money printing, throwing asset prices up and creating a lot of hardships for the own citizens of our country. So this is, so what's the miracle in play here? Well, potentially a way to, perhaps in this world, the hope is to create a country that's really trying to do things by the contract and by the word and by the rules of law as been set, unlike the collective West, who really likes to break rules. So how could we potentially put an insurance policy into play that doesn't have a political agenda? It's probably a neutral agenda, but actually wants the interest of its own country. It wants its country to maintain strength and to exist into the future, versus this kind of commie-tard European model of, well, let's just do all these things that seem virtuous and great, and if you stand opposed to us, we're going to squash you like bugs, little citizen. Uh, don't speak up to us. So yeah, so this is just an open thought, just throwing some ideas around and just thinking it out on the fly right now. And I just wanted to put this up and put this out there for any consideration of whoever's paying attention to this. So yeah, any New York bank wanting to fund some increase in industry in Russia, because seems like it's a big green field to go and play with. They got the energy, just need some money. Energy plus money equals industrial capacity. You just have to build that capabilities up, and then look to create some sort of trading model that allows you to, for, you know, a good price, kind of bring the products of that industry, back into your own country, while at the same time looking at how might, the appropriate countries within the collective West that really care, that want to rebuild their industry models. Given that I think there's a movement in wage prices now that perhaps makes it more tenable to reignite, especially in the USA and Canada, some industrial capacity. The Greens, oh, more industry. No, that's not green. But we do need an economy. We do need to provide things, get rid of the gatekeepers, get rid of a lot of regulation, and open up competition to give us a more robust economic model to create more jobs and perhaps get to the point where we become experts in producing things to which we can sell to other countries in the world who are now going to have the money in which to buy that. So we think China gets onto the game board with a currency, Russia gets onto the game board with a currency, they would want to buy things, wouldn't they? So that gives us a reason not to fight, but just turn around, trade with each other, and then become prosperous by doing that. And then you get a good, solid, robust middle class that can help become a cornerstone of the country. So that's the miracle I'm looking at today. Thanks for your attention.